probably 80% of my work is purely intuitive.
That's the bottom question of today's podcast. What is the strategy?
It used to be about who's doing it, and now people ask who's behind it, who's pushing for it. Remember that your identity isn't a brand to be launched, but it's a practice to be lived.
Let's get your emotions, your feelings out and try to create something out of it.
Design is not just what you make, it's how you make people feel, and it's about the ability that you have to move ideas through the world.
Before we dive into today's episode, we want to take a moment and thank Halm Collectives, the stunning space that hosts season 2 of the Design Pod.
From its beautifully designed interiors to the energy it brings, Halm truly reflects the creative spirit behind our conversations. We are grateful to be recording in a space that feels so aligned with our vision.
More than just a location, Halm Collective is also a home to a reformer studio, a private boutique gym, and a charming cafe. A full experience built around design, wellness, and community.
Thank you guys from Halm Collective for making this season possible. Welcome back to the season 2 of the Design Pod. And we are kicking off this season with a guest who is right at the intersection of creativity, cultural influence, and strategy. Esra Lemmens is a design strategist, author, public speaker, and moderator whose work spans the design industry, culture institutions, and even governmental leadership. She's also a founder and director of Esra Lemmens Agency, creative consultancy that helps creatives and organizations alike harness the full power of design. Esra, welcome to the Design Pod. We're very happy to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be on this side of the microphone for once.
Yeah,
I was just about to say that. How is that feeling to be on this side of the microphone?
I always remind the speakers that I work with that nervousness and excitement are the same emotions, neurologically speaking. They're just framed differently in the brain. They give you that rush of adrenaline, the accelerated heartbeat, the fluttering in your chest. The only difference is how we interpret it. So today I'm taking my own advice and I'm choosing to be excited.
Amazing.
I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation with you guys.
Yeah.
I am so excited for this talk, and I'm so excited to be back. To be back sitting next to you, Valeria.
Yes, high five to that. But also, I think that we should be excited about the new space that we're in, and also not only that we'll be covering design conversations, we'll be covering strategy and all kind of aspects of design this season.
We definitely have a broader view in the season 2, and I think it's an excellent start with Esra. And of course, we're so thankful for Halm Collectives, that is our sponsor for season 2 and this beautiful space that we're in. So Esra, as I said, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for coming. And you have a background in something that lays so close to me, and I've also spoken about it in the previous season, that fine art is something that comes from your background, and you have a master's in product design as well.
How did Esra Lemmens Agency come to life? Because you guys have such a strong identity, okay, as a company, and you have such an amazing creative background. How did your agency come to life?
The agency was born from a deep frustration and also fascination about how design was communicated.
Yeah.
I often found that, behind a lot of extraordinary work, the stories were either diluted or often missed.
Yeah.
So I think the initial intent of the agency was to find these stories and to tell them more honestly, more clearly.
Yeah.
I never, wanted to run an agency, per se, or whatever you want to label it, but that was the initial intent behind it.
Was it the same in Europe and the same here in Middle East back then? Do you feel it was the same, or that there was kind of a gap between design and the stories? And I think we can all relate to that, that as a practice you can be really good, and at the same time you don't know how to put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think coming from such an established design culture, there was a really clear framework with a lot of stories that were told in an honest way. I think that's, what Dutch design does in its nature.
Yeah.
I think it's very open, honest, humoristic. There's a lot of play in it. And I think whereas when I look at the Middle East back then, designers were still trying to find their voice and also trying to tell that in a way it was perceived as it was intended, and that's always a challenge. I mean, let's not forget it takes a lot of years to develop.
True.
I think for me in my background where I learned to decode design, but it was only through working across cultures and disciplines that I learned how to reframe it. I wanted to build a platform that could elevate design as a cultural force, strategic, intentional, and humane.
Because I also think that there are not a lot of companies like that here. To be honest, Esra is probably one of the few people that I know who has agency who can merge two worlds together, both commercially, business-wise, and also creativity-wise. And I think this is a really rare mix when you find a company like this who actually has a background in design, but at the same time can be has a very strong business model of how to take this business to the next step.
I think that's the future.
Yeah.
I think definitely that's the future. We learn and we come with a package from Europe that we're so thankful for, and we can bring it and implement it here. And UAE gives us the platform to be able to pursue it. Esra, you help so many companies to find their identity. When you started your own business, was it a direct, I know exactly how I will find our identity of my company, or you had to learn? I think that you're tougher on yourself. Even us, when I design for myself, it's a never-ending story. But when we design for a client, it's so clear and we can put things to perspective. It's structured.
Yeah.
So how was it with your company?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't immediate. Voice-like identity are iterative. So, at first I tried to be everything that my clients wanted: articulate, polished, useful. And then I think came the realization that clarity is more powerful than consensus. The agency's voice became about truth-telling, about speaking up where others may only whisper.
Yeah.
You guys work in a lot of different faculties. You work with designers, you work with
institutions, government, and
government and all. How do you guys approach these different faculties? Because I assume that you have to approach them in completely different ways, So is it easy to maneuver? Is it easy to adapt to the different ones?
I approach each context with curiosity, not assumptions. Governments, institutions, and designers, they're all operating within different constraints, but they're ultimately all navigating questions of impact. I see my role as to listen deeply and to translate across these worlds without flattening their intent and their differences. Adaptability isn't about dilution, it's about precision. Knowing which words, which references, which gestures can open a door.
Yeah, what do you think that businesses and government institutions, for example, get wrong about design? Because it is very different universe. In the end of the day, as we said, and as you said, it's design consultancy and government and cultural. It requires a completely different approach. What do you think they get wrong about the design industry?
I mean, I believe we are in a better place, but design is often mistaken for being decorative or worse, indulgence.
True.
And I think what people need to understand is that design is not the icing. Design is the infrastructure.
Yeah, it's not just paint and color. That's right.
Oh my
Cushions and paint,
Yeah.
guys. But we are more than that.
We're doing so
right?
much more than this.
Oh my gosh.
Which
I mean, it's-
which faculty would you say is the most particular or more challenging to dive into?
Is it cultural? Is it government? Is it what would you think is the most?
Oh, they all bring their own set of challenges. It's politics in design that are sometimes hard to navigate.
Yeah. It's true.
When we talk about design, it's about how systems behave and how power is distributed and how futures are imagined. You know? My work is about reframing design as a form of cultural intelligence. When we do that, it becomes clear that investing in design is not a luxury; it's a responsibility.
100%.
100%, and that leads me to my next question, because how was your feeling about design industry back then and now? Because of course things have shifted and things have changed so drastically, as you were saying, and it's so different, the roles. And what do you think about the region 10 years back when
Then
you
and
just
now?
started Esra Lemmens, in comparison with what we have now?
Yeah.
You got good questions this season, Valeria.
It's lots of homework.
As you have to do, right?
Yeah.
When I first got here more than a decade ago, there was an astonishing amount of talent. But what I quickly observed is that their stories were being explained through external frameworks, right? This is what we talked about earlier. So the region was either being overly romanticized or overly reduced. I saw a gap in narrative and a need for design stories that were rooted in the region's complexity and not as cliches. The agency started as a response to that and to represent, not necessarily to represent the region, but to tell its stories more honestly.
Yeah, and I think without the conversation, there would never be a design. I mean, design is all about conversations. It's all about collaborations, and that's something that I feel was missing even 10 years back when I, for example, moved here, in comparison to what we have now and to all the voices and all the stories that are there to be shared, you know?
Good design drives dialogue,
Yeah.
100%.
I 100% agree with you. How long have you been in the Middle East?
I believe 11, 12 years.
11, 12 years, yeah.
So
So,
we're
me maybe half of that time. But I could definitely see that the understanding of strategy or of design or of arts and culture and this has
even in that
evolved-
short period of time.
evolved so incredibly within
Yeah.
that short period of time.
Yeah.
Did people understand strategy and the importance of strategy? And is there something that still can be involved today? Or do we understand everything about strategy and, we can move forward and...
I mean, I do think there is a stronger sense of authorship, right? We see a lot more designers telling their own stories in their own way. I think that's really positive. That's a profound shift. But what we still need more of is criticality. Strategy is better understood, yes, but it's often mistaken for positioning or packaging, so to say. So true strategy in its nature questions everything, right? From including the need for the product itself. And that's that level of depth is still rare.
I think it's also with the rise of a lot of young and very fresh and the small companies. I also feel like, 10 years back, we were in a place where it was mostly big and very corporate-oriented big companies. Whilst today, what we have is a lot of merging, very fresh, boutique, I would say, companies that are the driving force in the region. Do you guys feel the same?
Which definitely would need more strategy.
Which needs
into 100%.
There is a lot of work to do.
This generation, I include myself in this generation, it's not maybe so much about strategy, but a lot about feelings. And maybe that's something that drives us a lot and maybe on a personal level. So when I meet a client, for example, it's a lot about understanding who do I have in front of me? What's the feeling? You know, what is it that we're going to create together? Because in the end of the day, use me as a tool, I say. You know, I'm your extended arm, use me as a tool. Let's get your emotions, your feelings out and try to create something out of it. Can we structure better? Always. Can always structure better. Maybe we should have a talk after this podcast.
I mean, but what you're saying is right. I mean, design, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Design is a popular choice for young people, right? I think that's a really beautiful development. And I think the pandemic, I didn't want to talk about it, but it has helped the world understand the role of design a lot better, because we were forced to look at, you know, our systems, how we operate, how we behave. And, you know, yes, the nurses and the doctors, and they were the first responders, but designers were too, in a way. Designers were the ones to hack a ventilator so it could be used by 2 people instead of 1. They were the ones to, you know, add additional surfaces, whether that was the right solution or not, or really think about how people move through the space, where the touch points were. And, you know, we see
100%.
fashion labs who started to produce protective wear, and, you know, all the brands supporting that coming into place. So I think a lot of people look at design at least a little bit different, and they understand that it's not, you know, mere decoration, but design is, you know, that invisible scaffolding that I talked about earlier.
100%. I so agree with you on this. And also what we saw in our studio was, you know, obviously now people, they don't go to offices, they stay at home, and it becomes an environment.
The office spaces.
That safety net and that, you know, change of home use became something completely different, you know. So
it also became very multifunctional. I mean, the way you didn't think before COVID.
And how do we adapt? How do we include that into our previously more maybe private zone, or, you know, feel good zone? Very interesting.
I wanted to talk a little bit about cultural and educational side of design. You work a lot with you know, cultural institutions, with museums, and I wanted to ask, how do this does it shape the cultural narrative today?
Design is no longer a neutral backdrop. It's an active participant in culture making. Museums and cultural institutions are realizing that the way they design their spaces, their identities, and even their labels, it all communicates values, right? Design gives form to memory, but also to possibility. And it can entrench narratives, or it can challenge them. And that is where it becomes truly political.
You know, it just appeared now to me that what is the future of museum and cultural spaces? You know, I never asked this question myself during the whole, you know, first season that we recorded, but it's actually a really good question to ask. What is the future of the cultural institutions? You know, how will it be designed? How will we perceive art? Are we gonna do only NFTs, or that's?
I think that's also, again, a great question. You know, if you ask someone like me, I think museums will never die out, and we can learn so much from what we see when we walk around galleries. You know, galleries, maybe not talking so much about museum, but galleries, you know, it becomes an institution where young generation learns to curate and learns to create and learns to get inspired. There is so much to be learned by looking at, you know, an art piece made by Fontana or by Manzoni.
Yeah.
What is a can of tuna with feces in? What does that mean? If I talk to an older generation, they would say, this is not art. How can you, you know? But there is another for me, there's another understanding. It goes beyond what actually is in front of me when I'm looking into it.
I feel like we have a huge cultural shift now, especially you can see it very clearly in Abu Dhabi. With
we have a more understanding shift in the culture.
Yeah,
would say.
in the region.
We're more open, we're more understanding, we're more acceptance to changes.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say as well that again, funny enough, in the past 10 years shaped a very strong cultural identity. In, for example, the capital of UAE in Abu Dhabi, we see all these beautiful museums that are coming up, all the cultural, buildings like Design Lab.
In Team Lab, not Design Lab. Team Lab?
Team Lab,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, Team Lab, which were not here back then, and now we see that it's a complete shift from what we were to what we are now, and that's exactly where I feel like your agency comes to. It's a perfect timing.
What do you think? What's the future of a museum?
The future of museums is layered. I think we are developing a more critical voice. That's why I'm saying this is more positive, where we think about, not just the objects, the items that we hold in a museum, but also who it belongs to and the why and what stories these objects tell in the world.
Do you feel like the educational system is really preparing the youth, the young generations to come out to the world and understand and take up on this?
There will always be gaps. That is because it's probably challenging for education to keep up with today's profession. Even doing what I'm doing today is something that you couldn't study back then. I always say like 99% of the things I do on a daily, I didn't learn in school. Add the challenge to it that a lot of creatives don't have a formal or business education, right? We started designing, we started our studio, taking on work, we grew, and I think a lot of people
learn as you go, basically.
You learn as you go without having a strategy or a structure in place. I see it a lot when I'm at the universities, and I think what needs to happen is that students need to learn how to frame a problem, not only how to solve it. How to think about time, but ethics and systems. They're taught to build portfolios, but not how to read power.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I can relate.
How do the students perceive you when you come and have a lecture or you talk to them more? How do they perceive what you're saying? I mean, I would put myself in the shoe of a 18-year-old or a 17-year-old, and I would be like, but what's the importance of this? But now, growing up, I understand that it's everything.
That's an essential part
it's a part of the fundamentals.
Yeah.
How do they perceive you? Do they understand?
I mean, I do find it very important to communicate the role of design. And when we talk about design as an agent for change, I think it really does open minds and showcase possibilities of how we are responsible of the future and how we hold that in our hands. But then I also don't want to make it too big and too overwhelming. It's like we're not there to impress the industry. You're here to shift it, right? So we make it a bit more human at its core. And I wish that we would teach more about rhetorics and emotional intelligence and strategy alongside rendering software, for example. Design is not just what you make, it's how you make people feel, and it's about the ability that you have to move ideas through the world.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, I agree.
With that statement.
It's so cleverly put together, It's 100%.
Do you feel Middle East has a unique design culture that should be celebrated, well, both here and internationally and abroad?
Absolutely, but it shouldn't be celebrated through tokenism or tourism. The design culture is layered, it's unique, it's alive, and it resists easy packaging. So to communicate it globally, we need to invest in our own archives, in our own platforms, and our own language. And we need to stop translating and start publishing in our own voice.
You know, this was maybe one of the reasons for why we started this podcast.
Yeah,
you know?
I was thinking about that.
You know,
Yeah.
how can we bring all of these creative people's voices and show, you
Yeah.
know, the outside?
But you see, we have the same purpose. That's exactly what Ezra been doing for 10 years.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's like a one whole
Ecosystem.
ecosystem,
Yeah.
exactly, design
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because she's been connected, you know, the companies, the consultancies, the cultural background with one whole world, and we doing the same. That's what we wanted. We wanted to give a voice to
Yeah.
people to share their knowledge about design. Yeah, you spent years talking design, breathing design, communicating design to the masses, if we could say. What do you think we will be talking about in the next 5 years? What do you think would be the most important conversations? You hosted so many panels, and you know, you've seen it through different lenses and of different backgrounds. What is it that are the most important things for us on the agenda right now, and what are we looking? What is the forecast for us for the next 5 years?
We need to talk more about ethics, about care, about invisibility, about who gets to design and who gets to design for.
Yeah.
The conversations I crave are less about trends and they're more about stewardship.
Yeah.
And to stay grounded, I believe in rituals, I believe in gatherings, I believe in print, I believe in walking without a phone. And the future will be digital 100%, but I want it to be human. I think all this super technology, you know, with technology, everything becomes very flat.
Yeah.
And the flatter things become, even when I speak for myself, the more I crave tactility. And I think these characteristics that make us human will make us evolve into superhumans, right? So the best critical thinkers will do better, for example. I think that's where we are heading.
So you think that you are with technology or against technology in terms from design perspective, from you as a
I am with technology.
Yeah.
Technology is a fantastic tool.
Yeah.
It you know, it teaches us so many things. It can help us, you know, speed up in the process, so that we can focus on different parts of the challenges. Technology is fantastic. I think it has its limitations. We need to be aware of these limitations, and we need to also better understand what we can contribute and what we bring in addition to technology. And that's where we take things really to the next level. I always say, when you want to think outside the box, you need to master the box first.
What is a limitation?
Enabled.
What is a limitation you think that it has?
I mean, technology has many limitations.
Maybe that could be, you know what it is? It is the feeling, because I believe that our profession is still very emotional. Design is still emotional journey, you know, whatever it is. If you design for a, you know, for a private residence, it is an emotional journey. If you design even for a big corporate, it's still that the bottom line is people. So I think that no matter how we use these tools, they're still restricted, you know?
I mean, look at your own work. Like, safe to say that probably 80% of my work is purely intuitive. It's intuition combined with experience working across, you know, cultures, different fields,
That's so
different
true.
platforms.
That's very true.
I mean, when I ask you that question, how much of your work is intuitive? See, I couldn't
would
resist.
say-
I couldn't
Yeah.
resist.
You
asking
had to
questions,
take the other
but
side.
I am
I
curious.
love this. I would say 70-30. I would definitely say that. We go back and we get inspired and we create based on weird stuff, you know. A lot of things that inspires me. Like, I've seen the leaves now behind you, and I have so many ideas that came to my mind for a project. I think there is a lot of limitations. I agree with you. And I think the evolution of that will be incredible within, you know, these coming years that we see. We already seen a very big evolution of what technology can do, and I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to stop there. And
Absolutely.
and maybe you're pointing out something correct there, that there is a feeling that is missing, and that feeling cannot be transmitted
Yeah, it cannot be done by technology.
through technology.
It's a human factor still.
So if you think about the new generation and someone that's, start their career, whether it's within creativity or business, or is there something that you think that is there something that you could, recommend them? How should they think? What's the strategy that they should
What
go
is
through?
that's the bottom
Yeah.
question
What
of
is the
today's pod.
strategy?
What is the strategy?
It's to detach from the pressure of being original. It's about being honest. And you're not here to impress the industry. You're here to shift it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love
Keep
that.
a journal, ask better questions, find your peers and not your idols. And remember that your identity isn't a brand to be launched, but it's a practice to be lived.
Yeah. That's
That's gonna stick
that-
with me.
it's gonna stick with you,
That's gonna
and it couldn't be. It's so well said. I think that the challenge is for the designers or for young designers is to find that identity or to come to that. I think this comes with experience. Yeah, it requires. But it's good. I wish someone told me that
I remember
when
that there
I
was
was at university. I wish somebody shared that knowledge and said that in this exact way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up with a huge pressure of showing,
Yeah.
having that. So that was a great way to put it. Actually, I love how you put that together.
What excites you the most? I'm sure you heard different kind of answers throughout the years. What excites you the most in the design industry?
Well, that it is becoming less about form, but more about consequences. Design is stretching into diplomacy, into health, into technology, governance, ecology, and we're finally starting to treat design as a tool for world building and not just world decorating, and that is thrilling.
Yeah, we can see it very clearly in workspaces and well-being all over, right? Like we discussed about it a few times before, but we can clearly see how now it's design is everywhere. It's implemented pretty much in every field.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
it wasn't so. That wasn't the case back then.
Back in the days, I would never think that a dentist would want to look, up to date and be designed, and
You mean the dentistry? You mean like a dentist clinic?
For example,
Yeah.
I'm just giving you that. Now I know that this part of the world is a little bit different from Europe, for example, but everything is designed.
Wow. Yeah.
Is there any particular entity that you would want to collaborate with in the future?
Well,
Your dream collab.
Your dream, yeah.
Oh man, I've always kept an open mind when it comes to collaborations and partners, and I must say that honestly, I'm genuinely surprised and impressed with the people who come knock our door and the challenges they bring. Interestingly enough, we've never had to do any outreach. I'm probably not even good at going out there and doing so, but every collaboration to date has come through references, word of mouth, and they're niche, they're long term, and they're rooted in mutual respect. So when it comes to future collaborations and partnerships, the people that we truly enjoy working with, I trust that they will find us when the time is right.
Yeah, I think that there is so much happening right now in Middle East, and especially in Dubai, that it's a lot of new exciting ventures coming up for sure.
I think the way of getting word of mouth, especially in this
Yeah.
region, is the best way of being marketing yourself. Is the strongest.
Also building a long-term relationship.
Absolutely.
with
I mean,
the-
it used to be about who's doing it, and now people ask who's behind it, who's pushing for it. I think that's also changed a lot. Yeah.
Look, this was a very interesting episode, and I learned so much.
And very informative, yes.
I learned so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
Um,
me.
We have our usual.
Yeah, well, in the end of each episode, we usually ask our guests to ask a question from our next guest. And since you're the first opening this season, we would like you to ask the question for our next guest. It can be anything
Alright.
creative,
Anything.
art, design,
Strategy.
strategy. Maybe someone a
Whatever.
good one.
Okay. Then let me ask it this way: what is the one belief on design that you had to unlearn, and what have you replaced it with?
That's a good one. That's a
Wow.
good one. Good luck to the That's a good one.
After this episode, that must give you something to think
Wow.
about.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you so much, Ezra.
Thank you,
Thank
Ezra.
you
for
for
having me.
joining
Thank you.
us and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.